Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bucs Bounty. It is December. We are in the month of giving, KY. So we got to give and give and give. Let's talk about the Pirates even more. Kevin Young joining me, Stephen Brault here to do Bucs Bounty today. Pirates fans, look, we have had a lot of fun recently talking about pitching, KY, but today's going to be a little bit tougher. And I think you're just the guy for this. Talk about this hitting with the Pirates from last year. First of all, man, how you doing? Nice Christmas tree. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. You see that in the background. We did that just for you. We wanted to make sure we get it up. Kelly did a nice job of, getting decorated at last minute
Just
last
all the way
night.
to the top.
And only thing I'm missing is my terrible towel that I usually throw up there somewhere.
Nice.
No, it's all good though. It's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, you too, man. We were just talking about the last episode that Michael and I did with Rob Freeman, Pitching Ninja, and it was really interesting. There was a lot to talk about with pitching in general, but also when it came to the Pirates. And so, just real quickly, KY, let's kind of hit that before we get into what we're going to be talking about today. The pitching for the Pirates, this young pitching. Last year, you get this huge boost, and this year, that's still going to be what we would call the strength of this team, right? I mean, the young pitching core is going to be what leads this team to a winning victory first and foremost. You agree with that?
100%. I think that's always the key. And then you have young pitching like that. That's super. You have power pitchers. You have guys that even from the bullpen, you have some wrinkles in there. Have a little funking out of your bullpen as well. So pitching and defense, they go hand in hand. So I think those are the two things you really look at more than anything. And that's where the question marks come, right? I mean, where are we going to fill in with those position players? But we know we got some power pitchers. They can pitch. They can get swing and miss. They can get the ball on the ground. And that's exactly what you want to see, especially now we have a little, nice little umpire help, if you will. Let's just put it that way. I think that's
Ooh.
going to help. The zone is going to look a little different. And when you have good pitchers the way we do, that zone is going to get filled up around those edges really good. So it's going to make it tough for opposing hitters.
I agree. Michael and I agree that if hopefully Andrew McCutchen signs back, we don't know if that's going to happen quite yet. But if he does, his OPS might jump by like 30 points just because it seems like he knows the zone better than anybody else, including the umpires.
Yeah, no, that's true. I would agree with that. And that's obviously a big ticket, for a lot of Pirate fans. They want to know, what the future holds when it comes to that, especially in that DH spot. It's such a unique experience for the Pirates to be in this situation. I was thinking about it earlier. If you think about going into the offseason, the Pirates to say, we definitely need an impact bat. Well, it makes it unique for the Pirates is because, you have Andrew McCutchen. He's a legend in Pittsburgh. And so he holds that DH spot. And so even though he's getting older, be 39 coming up in this season, you start thinking about things like that. And it changes things. So many tough decisions to be made over the next coming weeks and months. So we'll see how it all pans out, though.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. We'll talk about this later, but Kutch played in 135 games this year. Kind of easily lost because obviously a lot of them are at DH. All right, but let's get into this. The Pirates have recently been going through some coaching changes, new pitching coach, new bench coach, and a new third base coach. So the coaching staff coming in behind Don Kelly, kind of getting to form the coaching staff that he would like. I'm very interested. We'll talk about that probably next week. But for right now, let's talk about what he has brought up a few times, which is finding an offensive identity for this team. It's going to be something that the Pirates are going to have to find a way to score runs. Okay, this is just how it is. Okay, I like to talk positive about things in baseball because I know how hard baseball is. It is a perspective that I choose to take to try to highlight as many positives as possible. Today is not going to be necessarily one of those days. Today is the truth day about, unfortunately, offense underperforming, especially last year, to a level that they haven't really been at in a while. 28th in batting average, 30th in home runs, 30th in OPS, 30th in runs scored. They just a 26th in strikeout percentage to go along with that as well. It was a really tough season for the Pirates offensively. And look, KY, the truth is, if this team is going to pitch well, it only matters so much. Still got to score runs, obviously. Let's start with a simple question here, KY. what do you think could be the Pirates' identity this coming season? That is something you could do realistically over an offseason to get more effective, maybe get to the middle of the pack offensively next year.
I'm so glad you asked. I think the number one thing personally for me is own the fastball. I mean, hands down, without anything. When it comes to identity, there's a lot of things you can do well, but I think the one thing that immediately jumps out to me is owning the fastball. The Pirates hit 248 against the fastball. That's two seam, four seam fastballs last year. That's relatively low, and they only had a 708 OPS, and so you can get away from a lot of things. You can actually try to disguise it by saying, well, PNC is a tough, hitting ballpark, for right-hand hitters. You can get away, but you play 81 games away from home as well. At the end of the day, you have to be on time with that fastball. You have to be able to do that. And I've heard pushback over the years when I stress this specifically, because they said, well, the league spins way more now. They throw way more off-speed pitches. They breaking balls, curveballs, cutters, sliders. I know, I understand that. The key is when they throw the fastball out over the middle of the plate, it has to be moved forward, hard. And that's the key. So if you have an identity of doing that, guess what? You'll also be able to hit that elevated off-speed pitches as well. They elevate those sliders, they'll get those pitches up in the zone, and now you're able to stay aggressive in that area. So I think that's one thing that I would really focus on from an offensive standpoint moving forward for the Pirates. At least we can own that as hitters. We can own fastballs, and I think that will get you started, especially when you have the type of young hitters that you have. Those guys really need to learn how to hit off that fastball, because those fastballs now, as we know, that they have some really good ones these days.
Yeah, my first response as a pitcher would be to somebody who says that would be, please come up looking for the breaking ball. Please do that. Come up and look for the breaking ball that I will throw you, because the whole point of breaking balls, they don't look like fastballs, right? They have a different spin. Hitters can recognize breaking balls more often better. The difference is that the pitches are nasty. They move a ton. For me as a pitcher, if you're coming up looking for my breaking ball, I feel like I've already won the at bat, just to tell you the truth, because that makes hitting the fastball almost impossible. And then my second point on that would be that what you said is so true. We're not saying that you can't go up and nobody's going up and hitting the fastball. The Pirates last year had the 29th worst OPS against fastballs in baseball. So I think you bring up a really good point. It's hard to hit anything else if you're not ready to hit the fastball, right?
No, 100%. I think I always, like, even working with young amateur hitters, I'd always tell them that this is the key. It's when you get a slider or a curveball, it's an off-speed pitch. So that gives you a chance. If you're sitting on the fastball and you get an elevated slider up in the zone, man, those are the pitches that usually they don't get back, and as a
Right.
pitcher, as soon as it comes out of your hand, and right out the hand, it's like, oh boy, I gotta hope he swings and
No.
miss, or he takes
Trying to
that
bring it
pitch,
back.
and so I think that's the key is understanding hitting, understanding the approach and the art of hitting. I think that's kind of been lost because the focus has been so much on guys in their swing that they forget that they need to learn how to hit. Once you learn how to hit, the swing kind of takes care of itself, and so it goes back to the identity we said before. I think you always ask that three-letter, word or question, which is why. Why or the Pirates? Why did they lack an identity? What can be their identity? I think you need to figure out. Anybody can point out what the problem is. We want to be solution oriented, and I think that's the one thing the hitting staff has in front of them right now is that, okay, how can we make this better? And I think one of the biggest keys is just own the fastball to start it, and then you can start working off of that. It creates more opportunities for you in that way.
I kind of the way that I've gone about this in trying to figure out what I would say as a team identity is my answer ends up being rather boring, to be honest with you. So I want to give some stats here to back it up, right? So I bring this up a lot, and I think I got people I'm sure get tired of hearing it every now and then. But I truly believe that in a baseball game, if you can play the game of baseball better than the other team, even if they have guys who hit more home runs or get more strikeouts or have more quote unquote talent, I don't think that that doesn't mean you can't win a lot of baseball games if you're better at the game of baseball. Last year, really the only thing the Pirates were in the top 10 in offensive categories was their walk rate, which is a very good thing in today's game to be able to lay off tough pitches and walk a lot. The Pirates did also strike out a lot, so that's obviously not what you're looking for. But if we're looking for positives, walking at a high rate is a very good thing. You want to continue doing that. The problems come in from what happened last year that took away from that offensive mindset. June 1st, Pirates were fourth in stolen bases. They were 20th in baseball over the rest of the season. Why did they stop stealing bases? I don't know. I like that they can bring that offensively, and I hope that's something that maybe continues more consistently throughout the season this year. Yeah, what do you got?
Wait. So one of the why, right? So if you think about it, why did it fall off so much? Well, one of your big number one base stealers was Oneil Cruz. Look at the second half season that he had. He wasn't on base
Yeah.
very often. And so those are the type of things, like I said, we always got to take it back to why. Why did this happen? Why did this take place? So we had some guys that were base stealers that actually did not have good second halves. That's a big part of it. The other part of it is if you're a pitcher and you don't have a club that hits very many home runs, you can be real, particular with 3-2 counts or 3-ball counts or things of that nature. And you don't necessarily feel the same amount of pressure if you have a team that actually puts the ball on the other side of the wall. Now that walk means way more. And so the Pirates offense has struggled consistently. And so you're going to see those things. So that high walk rate, or I say being 10th, you would say would be, okay, that's a plus, but is it a plus? It's a plus minus for me. You know what I mean?
That's fair. Yeah,
so
that's absolutely fair.
I'd much rather have guys getting out there, being aggressive, opening up your bats a little bit, creating opportunities where people start throwing more spin, because that'll open up your running game. Now you have better stolen base opportunities off speed pitches. So, like I said, to me, it all kind of revolves around owning the fastball as a ball club, because I think that's something that we can do. And then you start pulling off the pieces from your offense and figuring out how to be more effective in game planning.
Yeah, I like the idea of more stolen bases, more sack bunts, more just good, solid, fundamental baseball. Getting guys home from third base with less than 2 outs. You got to get those in more often than the other teams do, right? It's all the little things I think that can add together. But part of that is the Pirates had the fewest extra base hits in all of baseball last year by 35. 35. They had 383, and second to last was 418. That's a huge gap that I'm not saying we need a ton of home run hitters. I think the Pirates have some solid doubles hitters, guys like Nick Gonzalez, but Nick Gonzalez didn't really show that last year. He didn't really drive the ball in the gaps as often as I think that we're hoping we'll see as things go on. So I just think the overall team mindset approach will really work for the Pirates. I think it's something that you can work on as a team, and it takes pressure off of everybody to maybe do something that maybe isn't in necessarily what they're going to do. Maybe they need to do something else. And I just think that can take some pressure off people. I think you're right. We got to hit the fastball better. Quick pop quiz here. Who was second on the Pirates in stolen bases last year?
Oh, man. As long as you don't say Brian Hayes, because that would be tough, because he wasn't even there the whole year.
No, it wasn't Brian Hayes. He was fourth. It was IKF. Okay. IKF had 15 stolen bases.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
He was second on the team. Yeah.
And the one thing I can tell you that, and he was hopefully, I was hoping Nick Gonzalez picked a lot of IKF's brain, because I think that's next, as we talk about guys later on in the show, guys that improve in different areas of their game. I think Nick Gonzalez is he's a slightly above average runner. And so that's one of those things that if you find a guy like IKF, who's a slightly above average runner, but very intelligent base runner, he picks his spots, he creates opportunities, and it creates run production for your offense as well. So very interesting, though. I forgot about IKF, and he wasn't there the entire year either.
No, and Triolo was third, and he had 8 in
Right.
August and September when he came back up and hit really well those last 2 months. He's an interesting watch for me because that wasn't just 15 games at the end of the year. That was 2 months that he hit over 270, stole some bases. It looked really nice. Quick question for you. Oneil Cruz, Bryan Reynolds, both had down years. For Oneil Cruz, I'm just going to throw it out there. I would call this his sophomore slump because it's his second real full season, especially after only having 9 games in 2023. So I'm going to say, look, that was a tough year. It was very difficult. He knows it was difficult. He knows he has things to work on. I believe in his work ethic. I think Oneil Cruz will bounce back. Now, to what extent that's going to be, I'm not really sure. But I wanted to ask you about Bryan Reynolds. So for Reynolds, this was his worst season other than the COVID year. And look, he played a ton of games, which is fantastic. You love to see that. He's in the lineup constantly. He has been basically his entire career. But he had a really, really tough first half. Did you ever go through that as a hitter, struggling in either the first or second half?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that one of the key things that I put my money on Bryan Reynolds having that type of year and bouncing back. His offseason looks different right now, I'm sure. How he goes
Mm,
about doing it. He's thinking about, I want to have a bounce back year. So the training regimen looks differently as he continues to get a little bit older. He starts understanding how to utilize, time, space. Everybody can appreciate his effort level when he's on the field. I really appreciate the fact that he posts every game. I think that's one of the biggest
yeah.
things. But in doing that, as an outfielder, you have to understand as you get older, you have to pick your spots. I know you like to see guys go down, full speed down the baseline on a ground ball. I get it. I understand that to a T. But do I want Bryan Reynolds to be 100% healthy in September when you have an opportunity possibly to do some things? Yes, I want him healthy or feeling better. So professional effort is always going to be a key. Understanding how to stretch yourself out, be available, but not just be available, be impactful as well. And so these are the type of things hitters, at the major league level that are impact guys in your lineup. They need to be out there. They need to learn how to play, through minor injuries or learn how to avoid, some things. So that's all that Bryan Reynolds, as you watch Bryan Reynolds hit, he's always hit in his legs. He utilizes those. Those are the same legs that he's out running, stealing bases, running in the outfield. You know what I mean? All those things, they take a toll on your body. So now this offseason is about recovery, understanding how to have a bounce back year. So, I put my money on him being able to do that. And to your point with Oneil Cruz too, it's very similar because he had to play center field for the first time. That's a 6'7", center fielder out there doing his thing. Yes, it takes a toll. It does, and that was the whole point of hand. So you count on him being a little more acclimated to the position, learning how to play the major league levels at a center field, high quality defensive position, and impact an entire season offensively.
Yeah, with Cruz, it's kind of funny because I keep going back on this. Like, we all know when we think about Oneil Cruz's season, we're like, man, just didn't have a very good year. Just not what we were hoping for. And then it's like he still hit 20 home runs and stole 38 bases. If the all the stats around those, if those two numbers were the exact same next year, but then the average was higher and the OPS was higher, I mean, it's you would be super happy with it, right? So it's just kind of about rounding out the game around those incredible skills. And I do think you're right. Outfield's a lot more running than shortstop is. It just is. Shortstop's a
Hey,
lot of back and forth, of course, but outfield you're
right.
running long distances, full sprints. It's just a different beast. But I actually genuinely believe in both of these guys having big bounce back years next year. I think that hopefully maybe you get this is your 3-4, or maybe Cruz is back up at the top. I don't know how Donnie's going to want to do that. Whatever he chooses to do, I'm hoping to see both these guys in the lineup 150 to 160 games this year, lefty or righty, doesn't matter, and let them go and let them tear it up. I think they're both going to have bounce back years. And hey, maybe I'm a little biased. I'm wearing all the Pirates stuff, but I'll tell you what, I really like both those guys. They're friends of mine. I talk to them a lot, and they care and they want to be good, and they know they had a tough year and they don't want it to happen again. I believe that they're not going to let it happen again. That's just how I feel.
No one destroys a baseball like Oneil Cruz.
That is the hardest hit ball in known Major League history.
Pitchers should consider themselves warned.
And it is gone! There's a Cruz missile!
Log in with your cable provider and stream the Pirates all season long on SNP 360.
Let's get to that everyday players marker. We've been bringing this up a little bit, but the lineup consistency throughout the last few years has been strange. You know, the Pirates went through a ton of leadoff hitters, for example, over the last 2 years, but things have been kind of bouncing around. They had 3 players who played in over 75% of the games this year: Reynolds, Cruz, and McCutchen. Okay, so those 2 guys, Reynolds and Cruz, that shows you right there. They need to have big offensive years, right? Because they're there every day. That's exactly what you want. But you need to have more guys getting consistent starts. KY, who are those guys for next year?
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. And I think that's one of the challenges that the organization has run into over the last few years, is that you have young guys that are coming up that aren't taking control of that starting position. Like you think about in the past where it'd be the Polancos or the Starling Martes or the McCutchens or the Josh Bells, Adam Frazier. They came up through the system and they became everyday staples in the lineup. It wasn't like they were platooning. And so now this situation, we have a lot of guys you're still trying to figure out. Jared Triolo, you mentioned earlier, that's a big one. You know, what Jared Triolo was able to experience that second part of the second half is consistent play. After the Bryan Hayes trade, he was able to put together some quality at bats, play in a position that he's consistent with, understanding third base. And you got to see a different Jared Triolo. Jared Triolo can beat you in a lot of different ways. He can beat you on the base paths because he's super smart. He's a good base runner. He obviously can beat you with his glove defensively. And you got to see him offensively, what he can contribute to as well. And so what do you have out of him? I mean, do you need to go get a third baseman? I mean, people would say, you know, yeah, you definitely need an impact bat there. Well, you know, you have an impact center fielder that most people don't have. If you have Oneil Cruz bouncing back, like we said, maybe you don't need that. But what we said earlier about that pitching staff, you need defenders. You need defenders. And that pitching staff is going to need a Jared Triolo quality type of third baseman over there. You need a shortstop. We need to figure out that situation. But going next to the next step, Nick Gonzalez would be the other guy that I would say that would step up. Like to see him open up his playbook a little bit from the running game. You know, learn how to get into scoring position more efficiently with his legs. Utilize that tool set and become a little more a defense player, if you will, where he's making all the routine plays and the tough plays consistently, which he's done a good job of doing that, but continue to keep building off the success that he's had. And then, like you said, he has some pop in his bat. He has double potential in his bat. He's a 30 double type of guy if he has enough at bats throughout the course of a season. So he can get 30 to 40 doubles. Let's see that open up in this 2026. And lastly, the guy for me is Henry Davis. Because he does such a good with that young, he's such a good job of preparation, taking care of that young pitching staff that we have. They respect him because they know how he puts in that work ethic and preparation and getting ready and game planning. And now it's very much like Jacob Stallings, right? Think about that. Now, if Jacob Stallings can figure out offense, I'll let you know. Henry Davis came in as an offensive player. So he just had to go through this process of what he's doing, and he just being stubborn to the right thing, and he'll find his way back and being an offensive player. I believe in the man. I believe in the work ethic and how he goes about doing it. But catchers serve, man. That's what they do. They're serving their pitching staff, and a lot of times that's where that focus goes. So Henry's had to try to figure out, okay, how do I process all this, put this back together, and now become that impact. And so for him, I think that's going to be a key contributor to how this thing turns around, is being able to get him back into his swinging ways that he experienced coming through college and then, making his transition into pro baseball.
Yeah, I think Henry Davis is one of the biggest. If we were doing an election here, he would be a swing state. He'd be like the number one most important swing state, right? That I think the way Henry Davis goes next year, especially offensively, will have such a big impact on what this team does because I do think that he needs to play as much as possible behind the plate because the relationship that he has built with those young pitchers, it's funny. Henry Davis, we're almost talking about him now like he's one of those veteran, savvy, defensive catchers who doesn't hit very well. But he's not. He's not that guy. He shouldn't be. And so if he's going to be able to figure out a way to get that offense going, and he already has this reputation that he does with working with a pitching staff, I mean, that can do so much for this team as a whole. The other guy I want to bring up is Spencer Horwitz. We saw Spencer Horwitz play against lefties at the end of the season a little bit more. And man, he played really well. His last few months were incredible. He ended up being the overall best hitter on the Pirates, led them in OPS. And he's a guy who I just look, I'm at the beginning of the season, I was kind of like, I don't know if I really like his swing. It seems like it takes him a while to get to the ball. And then throughout the season, I started to realize like, oh no, he really was just recovering from wrist surgery. Like it just wasn't quite there. The whip wasn't quite there. And so we saw it at the end of the season where he's just so comfortable in the box. And the reason is because he gets this barrel to the ball so quickly. And I think that over a full season, letting him play every day against lefties and righties and just give him that consistency, I would be very interested to see what he produces because I think you may be accidentally running into a 20 home run guy here that you didn't think you were going to get. And so I think that he is a very interesting part of this as well. You kind of feel the same way about Spencer?
I do. I left him off because I wanted to spend some time on him, so I'm glad you brought him up. He is probably, when I think about all the players, that's probably the one that frustrated me the most, and not because of what you would think. It frustrated me because he didn't get the opportunity to play against left-handers more, so he can come into 2026 and we can say, look, this is what this guy can do against lefties. You still have a question mark, and it shouldn't be that way, in my opinion. I mean, he, as he came through his season was, shortened a little bit due to the surgery. And that's the one thing, anytime you have a hand or wrist injury, the toughest thing is coming back from. It's not because, recovering. Obviously, you get a little atrophy from it or whatever. You have to build your hamstring back, but you just don't get to hit. Hitters hit. So we spend a ton of time in that cage. So that's a lot of quality time and quality hacks and figuring out, your timing, getting things right. Well, you don't get that when you're coming off a hand or wrist injury because you don't get those reps. You have to monitor that. And so Spencer got off to a late start because of that. Because of that late start, that's exactly why he needed to play more against left-handed pitching. So now when you go into 2026, you have a better field. I was amazed at defensively how well he did at first base. I mean, that just lit me up. I mean, he was a staple over there defensively at first base. And so I just love to see that type of attention to detail. But that was my disappointment. It was the disappointment of going into this next season, not knowing if you have an everyday, left-handed hitting first baseman in Spencer Horwitz that can play against lefties and righties the same. And so, but hats off to him for coming into a new organization, impacting it and finishing the season the way he did. But yeah, I really wish that he would have been able to have an opportunity to do that. And I'm sure he's going into the offseason thinking that himself, like, look, I want to play every day. And hopefully he's getting those reps, a little bit. And so, but yeah, you nailed it on Spencer. He's another one of those guys that you really look forward to watching go out in 2026.
Yeah, when he's been healthy in his major league career, which, is not super long, but he's shown that he's pretty consistent. He doesn't really go on huge slumps or anything like that. And I think a guy in the lineup every day like that is the perfect counterbalance to a guy like Oneil Cruz, who you want to be in the lineup every day, but he's going to go cold every now and then. But you pay for that because you want the heat, baby, the heat. And I think that balance is really good for the middle of a lineup or the top of the lineup, however you want to run that.
He got him, and he's done it again.
Welcome to Unobstructed Views.
We're at BP. We're going to give an inside look.
Once you start loving each other, you start fighting for each other.
Welcome to Coach's Corner. And he'll admire it, so will we.
Is that too much to ask for?
Oh, baby.
We've talked about the Pirates that we have. Now let's talk about the Pirates that we may get. It's been a weird offseason. Once again, the Pirates, no moves have been made yet. Of course, we don't know anything that you guys don't know. All we can tell you is we are following very closely. It's been interesting to see how the Pirates have kind of gone into this offseason. We hear things like they're possibly going to be, using the money that they have taken off the books this year to really try to improve the roster. You've heard some rumblings of offers being thrown at players that are higher than what we'd expect or what we've seen from the Pirates in the past when it comes to signing free agents. And now it's going to start actually happening, right? Because we're getting to December. Players are going to start signing. They're going to start taking players off the board. And once that happens, other players get more expensive. So there's weird things going on here. The question for me, before we get into the list of players here, is do you think the Pirates should try to strike early, or do you think they should try to wait and try to see what they can get more towards spring training?
Well, that's the beauty about being in this organization for 3 decades. You get to see how it kind of really works. I mean, the toughest thing about being a Pirate is that even if you're trying to make the right decisions, you always end up in a bidding war and you're always outgunned. And so you want to strike early. A lot of times all you're doing is really setting it up for that next team to come in when it
Somebody
comes
else.
to free agency.
Yeah.
It's not going to be one of those things. So, I think that's probably the key. It's not like there's a secret to it. Everybody wants to do that, but it's kind of like and when it comes to free agency, I laugh because like going to a car dealership, it's different. When you go to a car dealership, you can pick out what car you want. This is not
Right.
like that. You can pick out the car you like, but then when everybody else starts bidding on that same car, the next thing you know, it's like, you got the lint in your pockets. It looks a little different. So you just have to make sure that, more than anything, you get the right fit of person, the right time of their career, the right person for your clubhouse, the right person for your ballpark. I have some guys, that I'm sure we'll get into it here in a second, that I think that, to kind of raise the question, that might be that diamond in the rough. You got a little, scrubbed up on a little bit over the last couple of years, but they may be getting ready to turn that corner and come back into maybe something that resembles, what they've done in the past. So looking for players like that fit the right mold in this type of clubhouse for DK and this coaching staff and these teammates that they have surround him, that's going to be the key. And what I always go back to say, the complete everyday players, those are the type of guys you're looking to have, preferably a left-handed back. So stepping into that, and I'll let you finish up. One guy that steps out to me is the Cedric Mullins type of player. The reason why a guy like that jumps out is because he's a left-handed hitting, guy that has had some success. He's done those things before, and he's a center fielder. Well, if he moves over to left field, we shared before, that's a tough ballpark to play left field at in PNC Park. So, a guy like a Cedric Mullins type of player that had an issue with the last couple of years, one of the biggest things I noticed about him, he had a reverse split last year. He had 199 versus right-handed pitching. I mean, so my question again is why? That makes me feel like that's something different. That's something that we can address, because if you get a guy like that that's able to come, now all of a sudden he's able to do some things, turn his career around. It's not super costly, but it's somebody that can run, he can defend, and if you get that left-handed bat working, he's got pull-side power. So those are the type of things that you kind of want to look at, but what's your thoughts?
Well, let's go through this list here of the people that the Pirates have been connected to in some way. Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, Munetaka Murakami, Ryan O'Hearn, Jorge Polanco, and Kazuma Okamoto. Okay, so a few interesting things here. Obviously, a few Japanese players. if anybody doesn't know who Munetaka Murakami is, look him up. They literally call him the Japanese Babe Ruth. He hits absolute tanks. He's a big man. He is a left-handed hitter, and he hits absolute bombs. That's what Munetaka Murakami is going to bring. I'm curious to see where he's going to go. It would be cool, obviously, to see him in a Pirates uniform. But for me, I think that the most realistic out of this list, when I look at it, and I think not only will help the Pirates a lot, but also is a good deal I think the Pirates will be able to make, would be Jorge Polanco. I think that he's a good player. I think he fits the kind of what you kind of need. You're not really sure if you need a second baseman or if you need a shortstop or if you need a third baseman, but he can kind of play all those places. He's a left-handed hitter. He's got a little bit of pop. He can run. He plays good defense. He's a guy that I like in general as a solid all-around baseball player. And then my second will be Ryan O'Hearn, who's been quietly really good the last few years. Another left-handed hitter with some pop, ended up with the Padres at the end of the season last year and didn't play well. And so he's going to be a little bit cheaper, I think, come the offseason, or, come as the free agents start to sign. So those two I could see being the most realistic out of this list. Hey, Belsky, can you put up that list again that you brought up? I think there's a few more here that I'd like to talk about. When it comes to the trades, though, I think things start to get really interesting, KY. And so why don't you just go down this list here and tell me kind of what you think about these players in Pirates uniforms?
Well, I think there's going to be some fits. Obviously, the one that looks out, the Alec Burleson trade. I mean, if that's a possibility, again, another left-handed guy, Brendan Donovan, also in that same boat. You have the one thing that this club needs more than anything is left-handed everyday players that can put the ball on the other side of the wall. And so those are the two guys that really would jump out. With Nolan Gorman, there's some swing and miss there. Lars Newbar kind of had a down year, kind of bounced around a little bit. I know the Brandon Lowe was one of the ones that that a lot of guys thought that might be a really good fit as well. So I think when it comes to guys like Jeff McNeil, I mean, man, you're talking about, somebody's going to have to eat some dollars too. There's certain things that it's just, the trades are more realistic to me than the free agency. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the thing is, you're coming from a place where you have, a stockpile of pitching. Everybody wants pitching, so you may have some opportunities there to do something with the trades. The free agency, I'm sorry, it's just I'm the most optimistic and loyal Pirate of all time. But when it comes down to it, I mean, I've seen this story before, 3 decades worth. Yeah. It's just tough. It's really tough to compete in that way. That's why we said before, that development part and getting those guys to come up and impact, and then the trades are the key. The free agency is the third arm of that, but it's in the back burner. And that's what Ben Cherington, said from day one when he came to Pittsburgh, is that he wanted to win in those 3 areas, which were, player development, trades and acquisitions through free agency. And so, but we got to be realistic too. At this point in the game, we really need our guys to step up that we have in our system, and maybe that key trade to maybe bring somebody in. And, I have some guys that I wrote down on a list that can be those type of free, like you think about like a Michael Conforto, for example. That's somebody that'll be maybe affordable. Is he possible one of those guys that can have, a breakout year and come back and kind of regenerate his career, if you will? It's possible. We got to figure out the shortstop situation. Miguel Rojas, is that an opportunity there? Who's going to be out there, for these guys? I'm not sure, but we have some places to fill, Stevie B.
We do. You look around the defense. I think the easy ones to point out are a corner outfielder and a third base shortstop. You got to figure out. The truth is, Jared Triolo can fill either one of those spots at the beginning of the season that you don't have filled for me. And then I'm gonna be honest with you, I think Konnor Griffin's going to come up and be the everyday shortstop within the first few months of the season, because I watched this guy play. He is genuinely that good. He is better than everybody else when we talk about him him, everything that he has. You can go look up so many different articles about the different ways that people value baseball players and calculate what makes baseball players good. And he literally is at the top in all of them. The guy does incredible things. I think I think there is a possibility that we're going to be talking about him in a similar way that we talk about Paul Skeens. And that is a lot of pressure to put on somebody, even though hearing me say it doesn't matter. He tells everybody his goal is to be in the Hall of Fame. It's not, he doesn't hide it. He wants to be one of the best. And I believe he can be. And so I think you just kind of need to fill that space for now, more so than worry about filling it for the long term. But a corner outfielder would be huge. And so that's when I look, my favorite acquisition that they could possibly get out of this list that I don't think would be too expensive would be Alec Burleson. I think that that's a great combination. I love watching him play. He's got a great swing. He can play the corner outfield. You could put him in right field if you needed to. There's a lot of things you can figure out with moving guys around the defense if you get the offense. I think that's something we have to be honest about right now is we have to prioritize offense over defense right now and then get to defense. I think that we have enough good defenders that it works out. So I like the Burleson trade because I don't think you'd have to give up too much, and I don't want to be facing Bubba Chandler, trading him away to get somebody that we don't know is going to be a huge impact for this team already right now. Does that make sense?
100%. And like I said, that's one of the guys that fits what the need is. You need a guy that, left-hand hitting, everyday player that can put the ball on the other side of the wall. Does that fit? Absolutely. And so that's the premise of what you're working behind. Again, it's the car dealership. It's what you want versus, everything else. I mean, there's some other trades out there as well that other people may be wanting that too. And that's what you're competing against all the time. But it is definitely one of those cases where you do have a ball club that has a pitching staff like this. You have a window that you don't want to turn into a peephole if you wait too long to actually make things happen. So, hey, we're a couple days away, really, when it comes down to it, to the winter meetings and starting to see some of this stuff happen. Hopefully the Pirates can be super aggressive and actually work on some things. And another part of it, Stevie, is the ability to maybe either make the trades or free agency wise, are you able to extend guys coming out of free agency? Are you able to give them, 2 or 3 years? That's something we talked about in the past. Hasn't been really accustomed over the last decade of doing things of that nature. So again, how do you win in that arena? It's going to be tough. So the potential trades are going to be, one of those big parts of how we get better for 2026.
Yeah, fun balancing act. Just a reminder, the strength of this team is pitching, but if you trade all the pitching away, then you're in a new problem. So there's a weird back and forth balancing act you got to play here if you're Ben Cherington. I'm curious to see how it all plays out and what the team looks like come, whatever it is, March 27th or whatever they start on now. All right, but that perfectly takes us into our Bucs on Deck segment. We love talking about the young guys coming up. We've talked a lot about the pitchers who made their appearances this year. I mean, listen to this, KY. I love Nick Belsky, our producer, does a great job putting these shows together, and he throws in these stats for us that are great. So if you combine Bubba Chandler, Braxton Ashcraft, Mike Burrows, and Hunter Barco from their last season, look at those numbers: 11-9, a 2.67 ERA, 202 strikeouts, and 200 innings pitched. I mean, that is incredible to have that much consistent success among all these guys. Not to mention, Paul Skeens won the Cy Young. Don't worry about him. Mitch Keller did not have his best season ever, but guess what? He threw a bunch of innings and gave you an ERA in the low fours. I mean, that's a good, solid starting pitcher, right? Yeah. So there's some very impressive things that we have seen. Now we got to look for something similar on the other side would be incredible, but it's not easy. Obviously, we're not saying it's all going to happen immediately, but we did get a few flashes of this. Let's start with Rafael Flores, who's somebody that, I think is easy to kind of forget about. They ended up coming up, made his debut last year. We got him at the trade deadline, and he played really well in Indianapolis, and he came up to the big leagues. And the number's not incredible, 200 or 200 batting average, 627 OPS. But I think you agree with me that this is the dumbest thing ever. But he looked very hitterish at the plate. It looked
Yeah.
like he had an approach, and although it didn't really work out for him in a very small sample size in just 7 games, he looked like this is somebody that could have an impact on this team going forward.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big body. He's 6'4". I mean, he swings with bad intentions. I mean, that actually helps a lot. I mean, when you know who you are and you attack the fastball the way he does, I mean, and he definitely does that. And so it did look like he had a really good approach, at the plate. Like you said, it goes back to, those spotty at bats, coming up and not really getting a steady runway, if you will. I mean, that comes with the territory. I mean, all major leaguers have to deal with that. Yeah, at some point. When you're young, though, it is a little tougher to get, adapted to making the in-game adjustments. But I saw him literally make some in-game adjustments, and that's what got me excited about it. He's facing a guy first time around. He's able to get him out on a certain pitch, on spin down and away. Kind of went back to that pitch later on the next at bat, and he delivered it with a big extra base hit. And so, those are the type of things that you really look at when you're evaluating hitting and the actual hitter himself. And you're right. You use the right term. He is a little hitterish. I like that.
He's a hitterish, man.
Yeah. No, but, and I think the next thing is, where does he fit in the lineup? Where can he get the consistent at-bats? Is it going to be more of a platoon situation at first base with Spencer Horace, what we talked about before? I don't know. But if you have a bat that's like that can put the ball on the other side of the wall despite having a tough right-hand hitting ballpark, maybe he does find, some steady gain in there to figure out how to work his way at the major league level and impact, versus left-handed pitching. Is it going to be behind the plate occasionally? Who knows how this is going to work, but that's why, guys make a decision, but they make a decision off of whether you can hit that ball. So I guarantee you can hit it. You're not going to throw too many fastballs by him. I can guarantee you that, because he comes ready to hit that fastball.
He does. Next guy we want to talk about is other than Konnor Griffin, but that's kind of cheating the system. My personal favorite Pirates prospect, Esmerlyn Valdez. I got to watch him play in the fall league a little bit this year when I was calling those games. I got to meet him, talk to him a little bit about, what made his year so special after having a great season, high AA. He played in 123 games. He had 286 with an 896 OPS. He had 26 homers. He won the Willie Stargell Offensive Player of the Year in the minor leagues for the Pirates. And you know what's really cool about Esmerlyn Valdez? Listen to this, Gil. You're going to love this. So I talked to him at the Fall Stars game while he was taking batting practice. I go, hey, man, so I just want to know. I'm always curious. He had a good 2024. He led the Pirates minor leagues in home runs, but it wasn't anything like this season. So I asked him, what did you change in the offseason to prepare you to do that? And he goes, I didn't change anything. All I changed was up here. He goes, all I did was I decided that I'm better than the pitchers. And every time I go up to the box, I know that I'm going to get a hit off of this guy because he is going to make a mistake and I can hit that. And I was like, that was it. Like, you didn't, is that real? Or are you just kind of telling me what I want to hear kind of thing? And no, he really said that was it. It was for him, it was a mental flip. I am better. And it worked for him. And I think that it really showed this year. And we talk about power coming from the right-handed side. This guy has that in abundance. Do you think that Valdez has a chance of making his debut sometime this season, maybe early in the year?
I do think if he can continue to take in the momentum that he's had, not only from his time last season, 2025 was a great season, then taking it into the Arizona Fall League, as you said before, ride that into spring training, impact this club in Bradenton, during spring training by doing some of the things that I talked to his manager Andy Fox about, and also Gary Green recently. The one thing they talk about him is he pays attention to details. And obviously when you got to spend some time with him and talking to him, I'm sure you probably got that feel too, but you nailed it. I mean, the mentality part is the next step to being a productive major league player. When you can own who you are and own what you're trying to accomplish, that means everything. But the fact that he pays attention to details, that means he's going to pay attention to the base running, the defense, which, by the way, he has a plus arm as a defender. He's not going to hurt you defensively. And so those are the type of things that he gets to impact spring training in Bradenton, show off to his major league coaching staff, and that's where he has to make sure that he understands this is my opportunity to put off a good and leave a good impression on this staff. So when it's time, it's an easy phone call to be made. And if you run into any kind of situation where you're calling up a young guy that's aggressive, pays attention to detail, and wants to be the best version of himself, and he's aware of the mental part that comes with being a major league ball player, that's exactly the situation that he's going to walk himself into.
Absolutely. And the last one that I don't even think we really need to go into much because we've done this a million times. Konnor Griffin, who we're both thinking is going to come up early. I mean, I could see a possibility of him making his debut on day one if that's how things go. In the season last year, through 3 levels, he had 333 with 21 homers and a 941 OPS. He also won the Defensive Player of the Year award for the Pirates minor leagues, and he obviously won the Honus Wagner Player of the Year award because you can't win the Defensive Player and have those offensive stats and not win the MVP award for the minor league system. But this is a guy, he had 64 stolen bases, I believe, 67, something like that.
67,
he's
maybe.
going to,
silly.
yeah, he's going to be something special. And it's more of a question of when he's going to make that impact than if.
Yes, I do agree. I think one of the things that I will say is that players will let you know. I say that a lot, and you've heard me say it a million times. I don't ever want to feel like, no matter what, you have a responsibility in leadership to make the tough decisions, but don't make them tougher than they are, where you actually have the player fighting against himself. I think a guy like Konnor Griffin, he's going to show you if he's ready for that next level. Can he deal with adversity? Yes. Can he play defense through his offensive struggles? These are the type of things you want to know, because that's what makes true major leaguers. Can he beat you on the base paths? Yes. Is he solid mentally? Can he overcome the obstacles that this game can, to give you? But when you go into spring training and you see some things take place, I mean, I've seen guys make the team that had no idea that or even were on the radar of making the team coming out of spring training. We've seen that happen over the last years. So this is a different cat. I mean, it's no doubt. I mean, I've shared before. I was talking to Andy Fox, and he said, he kind of, he gave his comp, and he reminds me of the Chipper Jones personally. I've shared this in the past. When Chipper was coming up as a young hitter, obviously he was a switch hitter. The difference is Chipper, he had a guy like Fred McGriff hitting behind him. That's why it's so important for guys like Bryan Reynolds to have bounce back years, or Oneil Cruz to have bounce back years, because it'll make it that much easier for you to send Konnor Griffin to the big leagues when you have a proven bat hitting behind you that's doing some damage. Or maybe it's that acquisition we talked about, where you have that trade or a free agent that you're able to land that could be that guy that's hitting behind a young guy like Konnor Griffin. That will put him in a position where he can be a little more successful, very much like what we experienced in the early 90s with Chipper Jones as he got called up to the big leagues as well. So, I mean, those are the type of things that, I look at. I think Andy Fox brought up a pretty good comp too, which is Bobby Witt Jr. I mean, that's a legitimate comp, It's a legitimate comp. I mean, this is a special cat that can beat you in a lot of different ways. And so all that to be said, no extra pressure on the kid. Just go out and play baseball. Let that take care of everything else. And then he comes to Bradenton, it'll figure itself out. Baseball has a way of doing that, as we all know. And so we just get to sit back and watch and appreciate, the talent that this group has been putting together, and hopefully it can shine. And it's going to be led by these young Bucks, because, man, they are coming.
They are coming. All right, last question before I let you get back to your, I assume, Christmas movie marathon today. I don't know what you're doing today. Who would it be a bigger surprise for Konnor Griffin to make the opening day roster than it was 2 years ago when Jared Jones made the opening day roster?
No, I think Konnor Griffin, to me, I think, and to you, I think we can anticipate the possibilities of him making this club. I mean, unless we do something over the next several days that makes you go, okay, we went out and got a shortstop, because that'll kind of send the message immediately, but I mean, Jared Jones, that was, as pitching, as power pitching, he just dominated in that way. But Konnor Griffin, I mean, I thought Jared Jones was a big shock. That was a big shock. But Konnor Griffin, for me right now, I'm sorry. I'm like, man, I mean, I'm looking to find a way to not take him. Tell me, he's got to do something for me not to take him at this point. I mean, and I get it. I mean, he hasn't seen, Indianapolis. He hasn't seen AAA. I get all that. But because you have a skill set that, like I said, you have speed, you have power, you can play the position. I've heard a lot of people close in the organization say defensively, man, shortstop, he's really done some good things there. So again, what can you protect him with? It's going to always be my focus offensively, and I really, really want that to be the really big contributing factor to how he's going to jump off and have early success, because that's always important with a young guy like that. You want them to have some early success in April and May.
Yeah, it's not this simple, but I mean, if you put up the Pirates roster of all the players they have at their dispense up on a wall, it's hard to say he's not one of the best 26. So, all right. Anyway, thank you for joining us here on Bucs Bounty. A lot of fun. Kevin Young, Stephen Brault. Please like, subscribe, follow. You can watch us on YouTube at SportsNet Pittsburgh, or you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. We thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun. KY, say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Thanks for joining us here on Bucs Bounty.